Hi there, my name is Karen Neal. I am going to teach you an epoxy flow technique, but I'm also going to incorporate a stencil into this. I do use unicorn spit in mine. It's non-toxic, it's water-based, and I love the vibrancy that I get from it. So that's my choice. I mean, there's other things you can use. I think you can use acrylic and, things like that, but unicorn spit is my personal favorite. My epoxy that I use that's my favorite is Famo wood. You can get it at Lowe's. I think you can get it in Amazon and places like that. You can use any epoxy really, as long as it's clear, dries clear. What you're going to need from here after I finish mixing this is I've got 2 smaller cups that I'm going to pour different portions of the epoxy into, and then I'm going to mix my unicorn spit colors into the epoxy into the smaller cups. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and pour my main color, which I'm using quite a bit more of the epoxy, and then this is going to be just a white there, and then I'm leaving some just clear because I want to be able to fill in some areas and not mix anymore. So basically what I'm going to start off with is I'm going to go right to the edge of my inner boards because I want to make sure I fill all the way to the edge, but I don't want to end up mixing the colors too much once I get down to the colors. Okay, and what I've started with here is I put Blue Thunder as my base, and I did a real light spray of polyurethane just to seal it so it didn't end up with some rough edges and stuff. I'll go back at the very end and finish off the outside edges. I'm going to take my main color, which I'm going to be using the Zia Teal with my unicorn spit. And you want to mix this in pretty well, at least for this particular one. The more you mix it, the less crevices you're going to get with the unicorn spit. I do a lot of canvases, and I actually like the crevices, so I don't mix it nearly as well. But this, I actually want to try to get a smoother finish on it, which I'm going to be doing a second pour with just clear epoxy after I do my stencil. Okay, and then from here I'm going to try to fill in just about as much of the inside as I can. Mix it in with the clear that I already put in because I do want this to be fairly well covered. But I did the Blue Thunder earlier just in case there was any pockets that didn't get covered with the Zia Teal. Because I'm looking for kind of an oceany background to go with my seahorse. And I'm going to tilt it in all directions. Kind of push it towards the edges. Okay, now I'm going to go in with my whitening with the unicorn spit, and I just have a small cup full here, so I won't need nearly as much of the whitening into it. And again, I want to mix it fairly well so I don't get the crevices. Okay, instead of pouring this right off the bat, I'm going to actually just kind of come in and drizzle it in. Don't want that. Okay, so now I'm just going to go in and sweep it around with my wand. So I really don't want distinct white lines. I just want that oceany swirly look. Okay, so now once you finish pouring all your epoxy that you're going to, I have a heat gun that I'm going to use. You can use a blow torch or a butane torch or something like that. I would not recommend using a blow dryer because that moves it too much. But this is going to help pop any of the little bubbles that are going to naturally occur. Okay, and then I'm just going to make sure it looks pretty even. And it does. Make sure it went all the way to the edges. And it does look pretty good. So I'm going to let this dry overnight. And I will be back tomorrow to put the seahorse on and to show you how to finish it. Thanks. I'll talk to you tomorrow. So hi everybody, I'm back again today. Our epoxy pour from last night is dry. And this is the finished after it's dried. So it kind of changes a little bit as it dries. The colors seem to kind of mesh together a little bit, and add some swirls and stuff like that. So the next step for today is to apply the stencil. So I have already done my first cabinet door. So I want to measure it. So this is the first one. So it is completely done, other than I haven't done the outside, finishing up the Blue Thunder framing on it. So I need to put some more sealer on it, but that's what we're going after. So since these are cabinet doors, they may not be used as cabinet doors. They could be used as just wall hangings. But since they are cabinet doors, I want to make sure that the stencil on both of them are relatively close in size, because I'm assuming that whoever uses these are going to put them up as cabinet doors. So I have checked for my hardware holes, which are on this side. So these two are the seahorses are actually going to face each other when all is said and done. So with this, okay, so I have my stencil. This is the seahorse stencil that I have, and it fits beautifully inside. But I want to measure the other side as far as the height is concerned. The width is going to be pretty close to be able to figure it out. I'm just going to use my painter's tape to tack it down so it doesn't move on me. So with my epoxy, it hasn't been a full 24 hours, but it's been, I guess it's probably about 18 or 19 hours since I did the pour yesterday. So, and it's definitely dry enough to do it. You want to make sure you're not doing this step too soon, because then it's a little crooked. Because then when you go to put your stencil down, it's going to stick to the epoxy and may mess up the epoxy. There, that's a little bit better. Okay, so got my paper plate. I'm doing Blue Thunder as my seahorse. I'm going to pour a little bit on my paper plate. I'm going to make sure my roller is good and saturated there, but then I'm going to offload it onto a paper towel so that it doesn't, so it's not too wet. And then I'm just going to go right over my stencil. Not using too much pressure, because you don't want it to bleed. You want it to only go where the shape of the seahorse is. And again, I got my stencil from Cutting Edge Stencils. And I think I'm going to be able to use this stencil many, many times, because it seems to be very good quality. And if you notice, what I'm doing is I'm going in different directions just to make sure you get all the edges of the stencil openings. Okay, I think I'm pretty good there. I'm going to do a quick lift, but without taking it completely off, just to make sure I've got some good coverage. And it looks like I do, so I'm going to go ahead and take it completely off. Okay, that looks pretty cool, really. Okay, so I'm going to let this dry, and then I'm going to come back in a little bit and do my final pour, which is just going to be a clear epoxy pour. So I will see you guys in a little bit. Okay, so I am back. I have already mixed up my epoxy to do the final pour. I've got my seahorse is completely dry, and it is ready for the final coat of the epoxy. So in this, I'm doing just a clear. I'm not doing any color into it, and I'm very happy with how the background of the ocean setting is. Okay, with this, again, you want to make sure you're getting it all the way to the edges. Not so much as I'm pouring it, but I'm going to spread it to the edges. Looks pretty darn good, I think. And just eyeballing it to make sure it's level and doesn't have any little gaps in it. And I'm going to hit it with my heat gun one more time. Get all the air bubbles out. Okay, I think she's pretty good. So I'm going to let this sit overnight, and tomorrow I'll come back and put the polyurethane on the outside edges, seal that off, and I still have the underneath I need to do. So I haven't quite figured out what I'm going to do with it, if I'm going to do it black or if I'm going to do it blue, but you know, I'll figure it out once I get to that point. So I will see you all tomorrow. I'm back with my Seahorse cabinet doors, and these are the finished product. I have put several coats of polyurethane around the frame. Flip them around here so you can see what the back looks like. I did them in solid black. You can see where the hardware goes in on the back for the hinges. Pretty darn cute.